Welcome back, everybody. So today we have a little bit different of a video. Instead of talking about traditional things like writing cover letters or asking PIs about joining their lab, we're gonna cover something else. We're gonna talk about mental health and science. Now, before you just automatically click away and turn away from this video, I really encourage you to watch through this one because I think that a lot of you are going to be able to find some similarities between what I talk about and your own experience. And if you haven't started grad school yet or a postdoc yet, I think these are things that very likely you're going to run into at some point. And so it's important to kind of understand this and be able to identify what is happening and that it's normal, and kind of some strategies and how to deal with some, hurdles with mental health as you go through science. So, before we start, I'm obviously not a psychologist or a counselor. This is just talking from my own personal experience. So if you are in a position where you need, professional help, please do seek that out. And I'm sure that, whatever university you're at, they probably have really good references on counselors and things that you can use. So, let's start off just with the basics about mental health and the stigma behind mental health. So I think, this is something I'll go quickly on. I think we all have an understanding of what mental health is. It's the idea that, just like every other part of your body that could get sick, your mind can be sick as well. And just like you can maybe need medicine because your blood pressure is high, maybe you need some sort of medication because of anxiety or because there's a chemical imbalance inside of your brain. And that's normal, okay? These aren't things that we should label as taboo or things that we shouldn't talk about. I think these are things that we need to be open about, because let's go through a couple examples, and I think you're gonna understand why these things are really important for scientists. So let's picture for a moment that you're a graduate student, and then we'll do a scenario for a postdoc. So first scenario is you're a grad student. So think about this, you're a new grad student, you don't know anybody, no faculty, you don't really know any of the other graduate students, you don't have any friends, you're not by any family, you just feel like you're completely isolated. You're spending long hours in the lab, so you really don't have much of a social life or a way to interact and go out with others. You see your co-workers, your other graduate students progressing, and it seems like they're doing okay. So you're starting to wonder, did they actually make a mistake letting you into graduate school? And as you go, you realize that as an individual that has basically achieved perfection in most of the things in their life, you just feel like an utter failure because your experiments just don't work. They just keep failing over and over and over again. And it seems that everybody else is doing okay. Or maybe fast forward and you're dealing with the stress of prelims or qualifying exams, or maybe writing your dissertation, or you're wondering, will I ever be able to graduate? Or you have the constant stress of feeling like maybe my project isn't panning out right. And if my project doesn't pan out, will I be able to have enough data to write a dissertation and be able to graduate? Am I even gonna be able to find a postdoc? All of this on top of the long hours. You're in the lab morning, day, night. You don't have the social life. You see all of your friends starting families and working jobs and making good money, and you're meanwhile broke with, no sense of what day of the week it is, because every day is a work day. There is no weekend, there is no fun. And it's every day, every day, every day. Tell me if that sounds like something that you've been through yourself or something that you've experienced. The same thing happens when you go for a postdoc. You go and you get this feeling of, angst that you have to start over again, that you're starting from ground zero. You finally felt like you mastered some material and some techniques, and now you're starting over again, and the techniques you're learning again don't work, and you're wondering, was it a fluke? Did I do well in my graduate school and that was just a fluke, and now if I go somewhere else I can't succeed anymore? You're wondering whether you're going to be able to get that Cell Nature Science paper. You're wondering if you're ever going to get that grant that you need to continue working. You're wondering, with all of these really successful people around me, how am I ever going to find a position as a PI? How will I ever be able to get myself into industry? These are real feelings that I think most of us go through. And it's a shame that nobody talks about this. You know, we live in this isolated area where we work really long hours. Everyone is always trying to work more than the next person. It's just one big competition. And it's not just a competition within your own company. You know, it's one thing if you go into business and you're competing against the 3 other people, you know, in a company that are in the same level as you. You're competing against every scientist in the world. Everyone wants to be the best scientist, you know. Everyone wants to be the top in their field. So you're competing against the best, the brightest minds with the best access to technology, the ones that are always working, the ones that never sleep, the ones that sacrifice their family life, the ones that, you know, would give their right arm to be able to win the next Nobel Prize. That's what you're competing against every single day. And it's no wonder that so many of us deal with anxiety. We're always anxious, right? We're always worried about the next step in our career. A lot of people deal with depression. A lot of people feel sad. They feel overworked. They feel tired. They feel like it's not worth it anymore. You know, a lot of us went into graduate school with some kind of a grander vision, right? A lot of us don't go into graduate school because we want to make a ton of money, right? A lot of us are smart enough that if we wanted to, could have gone to medical school and been a doctor or been a lawyer or done something else that could earn more money. We went into research because we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to understand how the world around us works. We like the puzzle. We like the game. We like knowing that our research is going to somehow make a difference in somebody else's life. We're going to be the first one to discover a new field or a new area of research. We love that feeling of getting new data and trying to come up with a new hypothesis because of it, or proving our theory was correct. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling, and that's why we go into it. And then somewhere along the line, some of that disappears, and we start wondering, did we make a mistake? Did we miscalculate? You know, were we just so young and simple-minded that we just thought it was going to be roses the whole time, and instead, you know, we get pricked with the thorns? This is totally normal. And I think by now, if you're watching, you're probably shaking your head in agreement saying, yes, I've felt this before. I know I have. And in fact, if you have, leave a comment down below. You know what? I'm not afraid to say that I've dealt with some of these exact same feelings. In fact, basically everything I've talked about, I've in one way or another had the same kind of feeling in grad school and in my postdoc. Now, luckily, it does get better. You know, you move on and your career moves forward, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. But the question is, how do we get to, you know, that light at the end of the tunnel and keep moving forward, especially when everything can seem really bleak? And let's face it, when you're doing grad school or, you know, a postdoc, it's a war of attrition. The ones that finish and defend their dissertation aren't always the smartest. They're the ones that have the most attrition. They're the ones that can be knocked down and get back up, and get knocked down and get back up, and get knocked down and get back up, and continually take that, you know, punishment, if you will, and just never quit. And it takes some real dedication to do. So, you know, what are my suggestions for trying to deal with this? So the first and definitely the most important thing is getting a support system, okay? So that could be a significant other, it could be your parents, siblings, you know, classmates, it could be friends, you know, whoever it is. It could be a combination of many of these people. Have people that you could talk to. And try to also have at least one person that you could talk to that has an idea of what you're going through. So I'm really, really fortunate in that my wife is also a scientist. So if I ever have trouble, she knows exactly what I'm going through because she's been through the exact same thing. Now, not everybody is that fortunate, but if you can have somebody that's involved in science, that makes it a lot easier. But even if you don't, having people that you could talk to and rely on as a support system is the most important thing, especially if you're someone that's an international student, right? So if you're coming to the US for the first time, you know, you did your undergrad and now you've come to the US for grad school, you're all alone. You know, if you can know some people from the same country that you came from, that could be really helpful. I know that there's a lot of schools where, you know, if you're from China, a lot of the Chinese community will stick together. If you're from Iraq, a lot of the Iraqi population will stick together, and that's really good. It gives you a sense of community and home and family. But you are gonna need that kind of a safety net because you're gonna be sort of isolated and on your own. But even if you're, you know, staying within the same country, you still need that safety net. You need people that you can rely on to talk to. The next thing is that you need to write down your goals. I cannot stress this enough. If you don't know what your goals are, you're gonna be aimlessly wandering, basically. You need to be able to articulate what your goals are. So for example, if you're a graduate student, break up your goals. Your first goal is to get to your, you know, end of your classes. The next goal is to do your qualifying exams. The next goal is to publish a paper. The next goal is to defend your dissertation. Write out those goals and stick them somewhere that you could always see them. Never lose sight of those goals. You're gonna need to know those goals because on those really grueling days where you just want to throw in the towel and quit, if you don't have those goals in mind, you're going to quit. You're gonna walk away and quit. You need to know what it is that you're working for. When you feel like you've just about had enough, you need to be able to look at those goals and say, you know what, I am almost at that next goal. If I could push just a little bit more, I'll be able to get to a point where I could sit for my qualifying exams. That's really important. The next thing that you're gonna need is you're gonna need some hobbies. Everyone has things they like to do. And unfortunately, what happens is as we start doing science, we work so many hours. You're working 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You're working nonstop and you're tired. And when you're done, all you wanna do is go home and sit on the couch, eat popcorn and watch Netflix. And I get it, I've been there. But you also need other things that you wanna do. Maybe that's exercising. Maybe that's doing some knitting. Maybe that's reading books. Maybe that's going on nature walks. Whatever your hobby could be, you need something. You need a way to unwind, okay? So for me, I had some video games that I enjoyed playing with friends. Also later, after my wife and I got married, we got a dog and I enjoyed training my dog and taking him for walks and playing with him. And those kinds of things became hobbies. You know, the other thing is obviously spending a lot of time with my wife. You know, if you have a family, make sure that you spend time with them. And that sort of is gonna lead into my next point that I'll get to in a second. But for hobbies, you need to make sure that you have something that's gonna keep you grounded in reality. It's really easy to let research become the sole focus of our life. And it's really easy to let our research define who we are. And that's actually something that I struggled a lot with, was that my identity was tied to my science. The problem with that is you are more than that. You should be more than that. And if anything goes wrong in your science, if you've tied your identity to that science, then if something goes wrong, then you will believe inherently that there's something wrong with you. And that's not true. The two are different. And you cannot let your science define who you are as an individual. Now, the next thing is making time for your family, particularly if you're married, you have kids, you need to set aside that time for your family. And if you don't, you're gonna go crazy and your family's gonna miss you. I think this one's pretty self-explanatory. Make sure you have time for your family. The last thing that I'll say is if you find yourself in a position where you feel like you really just can't handle it anymore, maybe you need to talk to your PI. Maybe you need to talk to a department head. You need to find a way to get these feelings out and try to find a better routine that's gonna be more acceptable for your own state. Everyone's different. So there are some people that are just they're just machines. They could just work 80 hours a week every week and be totally fine. And there's others that after 40, they're tapped out and they really just can't give another ounce of it. You need to find what works for you. And particularly with your PI, you need to work out what that is. And if you've gotten to a point where you've done that and you still feel like you just mentally can't get over that hurdle, I encourage you to seek help. Talk to a counselor or, some kind of social worker or therapist or somebody. Take that extra time once a week to talk to somebody. It will help. And what I really can't stress enough, and I'm sure I've already said it in this video at least once, if not multiple times, don't forget, the same as what we've talked about before with imposter syndrome, is that you're not alone, okay? These feelings of anxiety or depression, isolation, feeling like you made a mistake, these are things that all of us go through, every single one of us. Everyone that's ever succeeded in a PhD or in science, they've gone through this. You are not alone. Don't ever lose sight of that. That's something that really helped me. And whenever I did have troubles, I always reminded myself of that, I'm not alone, that others have gone through this and they've succeeded. And if they could do it, I could find a way to do it too. So always remember that you're not alone. And if nothing else, you could come back to this community here, because here you're not alone. We're all here together. We'll all help each other, okay? So with that, I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. I know that this was a little bit different of a video, and I have some other videos like this planned that are not necessarily specific to being a scientist, but along the lifestyle of a scientist. So if you like this, make sure to give it a thumbs up so I know that you like these kinds of videos. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.